Hello and welcome to the MVP Show. Today we're speaking with Stephen from Belgium. He's a MVP specializing in Business Central and Power BI. And we discover his journey to becoming an MVP, his career, writing books, and life in Belgium. Now, let's get on with the show. But before we do, nz365guy.com/213 is where you can find the show notes for this episode. Stephen, welcome to the MVP Show.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Great to have you here. Now, tell us about where you're located in the world.
I'm located in Belgium, which is a small country in between France, Holland, and Germany.
Right. Famous for its beer. Is that right?
That beer and chocolates and good foods and all of the bad things.
What's the best thing in your mind about living in Belgium?
Well, the greatest thing is the culture and the people, because we are a small country. We actually, inside of our country, are all divided in separate parts. So we have to speak multiple languages. We're normally pretty tolerant for different cultures. So it's a really nice country to live.
What are the different languages?
Well, the official languages are Flemish or Dutch, which is actually the same, French and German, and most people also speak English.
In visiting Belgium, what's the best places to go to?
Well, of course, there are the very touristic places like Brussels or Antwerp or Bruges. But if you would like an experience with a little bit less tourists, but also similar, I would advise to go to Ghent, which is very similar to Bruges, but with less tourists. And if you go a little bit more to the south, which is also a really nice region, the Ardennes, there are some pretty nice villages too. You can go for a walk and combine culture and good food.
Yeah, I've visited Belgium, would have been last year, I think, or the year before. And, I was living in the United Kingdom, and it was beautiful, lovely country. I very much enjoyed my time there. So listen, Stephen, what's your kind of specialty in the Microsoft Business Applications ecosystem? What do you specialize in?
I'm actually specialized in Business Central and Power BI. I've always been more of a technical person when it comes to IT, and I like to develop in Business Central, and I would prefer to focus on creating very nice looking reports and analyzing data. And Power BI is also really, really nice tool to use. Okay.
So how did you get in? I take it was Dynamics NAV you started in, and how did you get on your Business Central journey?
It's actually quite a long time ago. I have been working in IT for about 7 or 8 years, and I was doing anything but NAV. So I was typically working for quite big companies where we developed ERP systems from scratch. So a small project there would have been 1 to 3 years, then the next project, and so on and so on. And then I met someone, Vincent, on a project, a very nice guy, and we kept in touch. And at a certain moment, he started a company in Belgium called Plataan, together with Koen, and they were looking for a third person who was more technical. And then he contacted me, and then I got introduced into the NAV world, and I really loved it from the beginning.
Okay, so how long has that company been running now?
I think Plataan started in about 2004, so it would be 15, 16 years right now, yeah.
Wow, that's an incredible long time. And so I see Think About IT. What's that organization?
Well, that's my own company, because I'm a freelancer. I created my company, which is called Think About It, or Think About IT, which I thought was a very nice name. Which is now also part of Plataan.
Yep. Okay. And so what's the focus of that company?
Well, it's actually consulting in the ERP area, Business Central reporting, and actually combining the real consulting, but also training and teaching.
Okay. So I noticed that you're a Microsoft certified trainer. How much training are you doing? What and how does that play a key role in your career?
Well, it all started out with the idea of a 50-50. So the idea was to do 50% of the time training and 50% of the time consultancy. But actually, it depends a little bit on the season. Sometimes it can go to 90% training. Sometimes it can also go the other way. But I like the combination of all of these things.
And is it just focused on Business Central, or you do broader than when it comes to training?
I go broader. I also do Power BI, for which I deliver trainings for companies using Business Central, but also companies using something completely different. In the past, I also did some other reporting tools on SQL Server. It's usually reporting or development related. The latest years is more focused on Business Central then.
So, I'm hearing a lot about Business Central. In fact, I just got messaged yesterday and somebody was asking my advice around on LinkedIn. Is Business Central going to be, one of Microsoft's big, large products in the ERP space, along with, Dynamics 365 operations and finance side of things? What are your thoughts on where the future is for Business Central?
Well, I think it's actually pretty good, because Business Central, as you all know, has evolved from the old Dynamics NAV product, which has been the number one ERP system for small and medium-sized companies. And what many people think when they talk about Business Central or Dynamics NAV is that it's more for smaller companies. But my personal experience is that is true, but it's also quite a good product for medium and even bigger sized companies. So from my point of view, what Microsoft has done now with the change towards Business Central, making it a SaaS application, refactoring the base up, investing a lot of time and resources in doing so, I think the product is getting better and better and better every day. And I think it has a really, really good future. I would say it has a chances to become, let's say, the number one ERP product within the whole Dynamics 365 group of products.
Wow, interesting. Tell me about integration with things like PowerApps and Power Automate. Is there a good story there? Are you seeing customers use PowerApps and Power Automate, or even Power Virtual Agents with Business Central?
It's starting. You see a lot of interest from many different companies and business consultants trying to figure out what is this Power Suite thing and how can I use that, because the low code gets a lot of interest, but it's starting out. Most companies started out with Power BI, and because it's actually pretty easy to link it to Business Central. And now companies are also slowly starting to figure out Power Automate and how to create Power Apps. And I think the reason why that took a little bit longer is because they had to wait a little bit before the API was ready, and now it is, and now you see some traction on that.
So tell us a bit about Power BI, because you spend a lot of your time in that as well, with your SQL background as well. When you go into a customer or on a project and they need reporting, how do you approach, business intelligence with the customer?
Well, there are two different approaches. On the one hand, you can have a customer who contacts you and they say, okay, we have this application. It might be Business Central or another, or a combination of data sources. And they say, we would like to create a report. Then I try to understand what are the reporting needs. So what do you want to see? What do you want to do? And based on that, I do an analysis of the kind of data model I would like to create, and then build it and the reports. But that's an approach which is actually valid for, let's say, 60 to 80% of the customers. But what I really prefer is if you can do it the other way around. Because traditionally, when you think about reporting, it comes at the end of an implementation. But what many partners actually forget when they sell, for example, Business Central or any ERP system, is that you should think about reporting from the beginning. When a partner goes to a prospect and they would like to sell Business Central, they're typically going to explain how Business Central processes work, how you can adapt them to the processes running in the company, and this is how you can enter data in the system, and so on and so on. But that's actually not really what the customer is interested in. The customer is actually more interested, what if I buy Business Central? How am I going to be able to look at my data? What reports am I going to get them. For my personal opinion, I think a partner should use that approach. For example, if you go the Business Central way, and then you have these Power BI reports, you will be able to do this and that, and I think that's a much better approach.
You've got a thing called Business Central Booster, and I see it's around case-based learning. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, I can, of course. Business Central Booster is a website and a project that we have developed at Plataan. And it's kind of a learning management system where the idea right now is to get a functional consultant onboarded with Business Central. So there are different tracks that you can follow, but imagine you start from zero. You don't know anything about Business Central, you've never implemented an ERP. Then our idea was, well, there was quite a lot of learning material online available from Microsoft Learn, lots of blogs in the documentation and so on, but it's all very scattered. And we thought, okay, let's create a learning tool from the point of view of a functional consultant who's actually confronted with doing an implementation. So it's actually case-based. You start with a real case. You need to implement this customer. You're going to learn about that customer, and then we're going to use Business Central. And along the way, you're going to learn how to do that implementation. So we tried to build that as close to real life as possible. And then we use a combination of the available materials on Learn and Docs. We have some pre-recorded webinars and videos, and we also do some live webinars. So when someone, for example, starts the program, and they will get an introduction, they start to build on the case. There is a forum where they can ask questions. There are some MVPs and trainers helping them out. Where we try to make it as practical as possible. Right now, it's mainly focused on functional consultants, and we're very close to also starting to develop a technical program, one for developers and also one for Power BI developers.
Wow. Okay. And so, with COVID-19 happening around the world, have you been traditionally doing a lot of your training in classrooms, and now how are you managing that in this current situation?
A very good question. In the past, it was actually mainly classroom instructor-led training, where we invited customers to come over, and then we did the traditional training. There were also some virtual trainings and webinars that we were doing, but we were noticing that in Belgium and Europe, it was quite difficult to get that rolling. I know with the whole situation, we actually had to close the classrooms, and we all started to work from home, and we switched over completely 100% to online trainings and webinars. And actually, it's going pretty good. In the beginning, we were a little bit afraid if we would have the same experience and if we could deliver the same quality. But actually, the feedback, well, until now, was very positive, and I like doing it. Of course, you miss a little bit the real life contact with participants, but it's actually going pretty well, and we're hoping that we will be able to continue to do it also after the whole crisis is resolved, so to speak.
So that's interesting. So have you worked out that you think that you will go forward in an online only model with webinars and things like this, rather than go back to classroom after this is passed?
Well, personally, I would like to continue to be able to deliver virtual training. Of course, we're going to reopen the classrooms because there are some customers for whom that's not an interesting way to follow trainings. And I think we're going to try to combine them. But the focus, I think, is going to shift. And I think a lot of companies are also experiencing the advantages of being able to follow online webinars. So you don't have to, let's say, get out of bed and then spend 2 hours of time in traffic and get all wind up and too late in the office. So it's a really nice way, and we're also able to deliver the same kind of material and quality. So there are lots of advantages. And if we can, I would like to continue doing that.
Yeah. Nice. So tell me a bit about your journey to becoming an MVP.
Well, it was actually quite unexpected. I'd been working for a long time, for many years in the Business Central or the NAV world, and I was delivering a lot of trainings. I also did some presentations on certain conferences, and then suddenly I got I was nominated by Kurt Juveins from Microsoft, I got that email. And then a couple of months later, I was informed that I made the cut and I became an MVP. I was really surprised to suddenly be among that group of gurus. I felt like, and I still feel sometimes I'm a little bit out of place being amongst the gods, so to speak. But it's really, really good experience. I'm really grateful of being a part of that.
So how many years have you been an MVP now?
I think it will be about 4 years. I think I was first rewarded in 2016.
Yeah. So you're right in that space where I am at the moment, which is waiting to see whether you get renewed for the coming year, right?
Correct. I'm waiting, and if I get renewed, it will be the 5th year, which is kind of a jubileum. It would be really, really nice, but don't know if it will happen, because last year I wasn't able to do a lot of conferences, but we'll wait and see. I'm hopeful, but I'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. So when it comes to MVP contributions, is your main thing public speaking, or is there other contribution channels that you use?
It's a combination. I have a blog where I try to share some knowledge and tips and how do I's. It's of course speaking at conferences. I'm also helping out monitoring a number of people. In the past, I've also written a book about reporting. And I still have some plans of maybe writing a book about Power BI, but at the moment I'm always postponing it. And the reason is that last time it took me more than a year to write a book, and okay, but that's okay. But if it would take me the same time again, then by the time the book is released, I can start all over again, because Power BI is evolving so quickly.
So that's interesting. It took you over a year. I've always got tremendous respect for people that write, books and especially technical books, because the effort. In hindsight, I mean, you're considering writing another book. You must have found it beneficial, or what was that journey like for you of writing that book?
Well, it's something I had in my head to do for a long time, but never got around to it. And I was contacted by the publishing company, and they asked me to write a book, which I did. And then actually, a couple of years later, they asked me to update it. Then I said I won't update it. I want to rewrite it completely. And then the second time was actually better, because then I really did it how I wanted to do it. It took me a lot of time and effort every weekend, every evening. It was something I wanted to do. So yeah, it was great to be able to do it, but it's not something that you do every year. At that time, I was also single, so that also helped out. So no one was angry when I was every evening and in the weekends after on my little laptop. So.
So what is your process from going, okay, I'm going to write a book? Like, what's your process from laying down the chapter to, length of chapter, how you flow through it? What if you were to explain book writing to somebody, and we're talking about technical book writing, how would you explain it?
It's never as you plan or as you expect. It's like an implementation of Business Central, so to speak. In the beginning, you have this table of contents in your head, or you start to think about the table of contents, and you say, this is how I'm going to do it. And then you start, and then while you are writing, typically how it goes is that when you divide the book in multiple chapters, and once the chapter is finished, it goes to the editor and to some reviewers. And there are also some content reviewers. And typically when it comes back, there are some very good questions and remarks. And then you start to think, yeah, they're right. And maybe I should do that a little bit differently. And then you start to rethink the whole table of contents. But you still need to be on track or be on time to be able to deliver the next chapter. And by the time you have written the book, you say, that's really nice, but actually now I would like to completely rewrite it. But of course you can't. Yeah. But it's a frustrating sometimes or stressing. But once you're ready, you have this enormous feeling of proudness of having constructed something, even if it's although a book. Yeah.
How many hours do you think it took you all up to write your first book?
I would say I had, it was a whole week, 12 months, let's say 11 months, 3 weeks per month, every evening, and then on the weekend, Saturdays and Sundays. So it was A lot of time, really a lot of time. Yeah, but I wanted to do it right.
Yeah. And was the financial payoff with writing a book worth it?
No, not really. It's not something that you have to do for the money. Most of the percentages go to the editor or the publisher. Okay, you get an advance and you get paid something, but it's not something you have to do for the money. There are much better ways of doing that. But it's nice. But on the other hand, it also opens doors. By being a book writer, it's also something you can sort of speak, put on your resume, and it helps you also during training. And that was always my idea. I had been delivering trainings for many years, and I said I would like to be able to put that real life experience in a book.
Very good. Well, it's been interesting talking to you, and our time has flown. So I always like to wrap up with a few random questions. So are you ready for these random questions?
All right, go ahead.
Okay, here's the first one. You walk into a cafe. What's your favorite drink you order?
It depends a little bit on the weather. I'm actually a fan of a very nice beer. Here in Belgium, there's a lot of choice. So I would go, let's say, for a Duvel or something something similar. But it can also happen that I would go for a very nice glass of red wine. So it really depends on the mood and the weather.
I love it. Would you rather date someone you met online or go on a blind date?
Well, maybe I would go for a blind date. Yeah.
Nice. What's your favorite board game?
I like to play chess, actually. I'm not very good at it, but it calms me down and it helps me focus. Yeah.
Nice. Now, the next question is what is one of the things that frustrates you, or, just it's one of those things that, irritates you? So for me, it might be people chewing loudly with their mouth open or something like that. What's the one pet peeve that you have?
I'm looking for the correct word, but when people are, I'm looking for the words, because once I was on a project in Barcelona for 6 months, where it's a very big city with many cultures. Everybody's really open. And then I came back to Belgium. People are more closed and more reserved and kind of afraid sometimes of other cultures and other people. And that sometimes frustrates me. When they meet someone they've never seen before, and just by the look of that person or the color of their skin, they presume he or she might be this or that, while that frustrates me. But there's a word for that, but I can't seem to be able to.
What's one thing you did that you wish you could go back and change?
It's a very, very good question. I can't really think of something. Maybe moving over more early to the Dynamics and AVR Business Central world, because I had been the first 10 years of my career writing ERP software from scratch, because I'd never heard about that. But on the other hand, that also gave me some skills and experience that really helped me. So,
final question: if you could create one holiday for the entire world, what would the holiday be for?
Well, maybe it would be very nice to have a worldwide holiday to celebrate the end of the COVID crisis, if that ever happens.
Yeah, so true. Stephen, it's been great to have you on the show. Before you go, if people want to connect with you online, where can they find you?
They can find me on thinkaboutit.be, where I have my personal blog, or you can go to plataan.tv. And then you will be able to find all of the contact information.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you've heard of the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge and wondering what it's all about, go over to my website at nz365guy.com/90daymc, or just go to nz365guy.com and click on mentoring in the menu. It is a free mentoring challenge that I run for 90 days, and it's open to anybody, anywhere in the world. I try and match time zones so that you can participate and be fully involved in it. So I'd love to get you involved if that's of interest. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/213. See you next time.